Fiscal deficit to 2.25 trillion and foreign investment decline, Beijing sets up bailout fund. Jiangxi mother blocked from withdrawing deceased son's 55,000 yuan, sparks public outcry. Beware of traps. Expert analysis of the CCP's new round of fiscal and tax reforms. Backlash against policies pushing rural Chinese to swap homestead rights for urban housing. Sudden heavy snow in Ganzi, Sichuan traps motorists on highway, Shivering. Southern China disasters, landslide kills 8, subway lines halted, Lingyin temple flooded. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Fiscal deficit to 2.25 trillion and foreign investment decline, Beijing sets up bailout fund. Data released by the Ministry of Finance of the Chinese Communist Party on June 24 show that from January to May, the CCP's fiscal revenue decreased by 4.1% to 11.36 trillion yuan, approximately $1.56 trillion, marking the fastest decline in over a year. Expenditures during this period also fell by 2.2% to 13.61 trillion yuan, about $1.87 trillion, expanding the fiscal deficit to 2.25 trillion yuan, about $310 billion. The economic slowdown and a prolonged real estate downturn have strained the budget, prompting increased efforts to collect corporate taxes, including those from years past. Land transfer revenue, crucial for local governments, has significantly dropped, severely impacting their budgets. Additionally, heightened tax enforcement has created unease among private enterprises. Additionally, on June 21, the CCP's Ministry of Commerce stated that foreign direct investment in China also continued its decline, falling 28.2% in the first 5 months of the year amidst worsening economic and trade relations with Western countries. To prevent a financial crisis, the CCP will establish a fund to aid financial companies. According to a report by Nikkei Asia on June 24, the CCP plans to establish a bailout fund for financially distressed financial institutions aimed at preventing a financial crisis triggered by the downturn in the real estate market. The report notes that unlike similar funds established to protect customers, the purpose of the new fund is to prevent the sudden collapse of financial institutions, as such bankruptcies could cause turmoil in the financial markets. The Standing Committee of the National People's Congress of the CCP will meet on June 25 to discuss a bill that will detail how this new fund will collect and disburse donations. The bill is expected to be enacted by the end of the year. The fund will primarily collect funds from companies in the financial industry. A Chinese Communist government insider stated that the fund will eventually have several hundred billion yuan. In an emergency, the People's Bank of China will be able to expand this fund by providing low-interest loans. In addition to insurance and trust industry funds, the CCP already has a deposit insurance fund to protect depositors. As of the end of last year, the balance of the deposit insurance fund was 81 billion yuan, about $11 billion. Although these funds are mainly to protect customers, the new fund will support financial institutions. The concern is that the collapse of one financial institution will increase the instability of the entire financial market, causing a chain reaction that leads to the bankruptcy of other financial and non-financial companies. To date, local governments have alleviated financial risks through capital injections. They raise funds by issuing bonds. However, due to the downturn in the real estate market, local governments face declining revenues. If they issue bonds to save banks, their financial difficulties will worsen. The report points out that by involving financial institutions in the creation of the new fund, the CCP central government may hope to strengthen the safety net while alleviating the public financial burden. Jiangxi mother blocked from withdrawing deceased son's 55,000 yuan, sparks public outcry. According to a June 21 announcement from a Jiangxi court, Ms. Wu's son, Mr. Li, opened an account at a bank in Yingtan, Jiangxi, on March 21, 2017, and by August 9, 2023, the account balance had exceeded 55,000 yuan, about $7,600. Mr. Li passed away on May 1, 2023. Ms. Wu requested to withdraw the aforementioned deposit, but the bank did not process it, citing the inability to confirm whether Ms. Wu was the sole heir. Further investigation revealed that Mr. Li was unmarried and childless, and his mother, Ms. Wu, had him out of wedlock. Ms. Wu stated that she could not confirm the identity of Mr. Li's father and had raised him alone. She sued the bank, demanding payment of Mr. Li's deposit held at the bank. The Yuehu District Court in Yingtan concluded that Mr. Li had established a savings deposit contract with the bank during his lifetime, and upon his death, the rights and obligations under the savings deposit contract would be inherited by his heirs. Therefore, the court supported Ms. Wu's claim for the bank to pay out the balance in Mr. Li's account. The court also stated that upon the depositor's death, their deposits would become part of their estate, inherited by the heirs, but could not be withdrawn without a password. Typically, heirs need to obtain a certificate from the notary office to prove their identity and right to withdraw the deceased depositor's funds, after which the bank can process the transfer or payment procedures. Netizens in China have strongly criticized banks for handling withdrawals from deceased individuals' accounts. They highlight the requirement for the depositor's physical presence, which prevents heirs from accessing funds even if they know the password. Additionally, there is frustration over banks delaying withdrawals to accrue more interest and a lack of compassion for families dealing with small inheritances. In recent years, there have been incidents where relatives of deceased depositors were denied withdrawal from banks. Previously, topics such as 79-year-old man was denied withdrawal of deceased son's 410,000 yuan, father passed away and could not withdraw 3 million yuan in savings, wife was denied withdrawal of 60,000 yuan after husband's death, and man deposited 1.9 million yuan during his lifetime, and his widow was refused to withdraw money from the bank, frequently topped the hot search lists. Beware of traps. Expert analysis of the CCP's new round of fiscal and tax reforms. As China's economy continues to decline, facing fiscal difficulties and a local debt crisis, the CCP authorities plan to change the tax-sharing ratios between the central and local governments for certain taxes. Commentators believe this only proves that local government finances have collapsed, endangering the CCP's rule. The purpose of the fiscal and tax reform is to save the regime, not the economy. In 1994, the CCP government carried out a fiscal and tax system reform with a tax-sharing system, establishing national and local tax bureaus and then setting the ratios. This was deepened in 2014. At the end of 2023, the CCP Central Committee proposed planning a new round of fiscal and tax system reforms, which once again attracted external attention. Mr. Qin Peng, a Chinese political and economic analyst in the U.S., said, "The CCP authorities want to change the distribution mechanism of certain taxes between the central and local governments and have made it a top agenda item at the third plenary session." What does it really solve? It's about fiscal and tax issues, not economic problems. This only shows the first point: local finances have already collapsed, endangering the CCP's rule, forcing them to change. Its purpose is to save the government, save the regime, not to save the economy. Public opinion points out that the deepening of fiscal and tax system reforms from 2014 is still ongoing, and the proposal of a new round of reforms now is clearly based on new fiscal and economic situations and challenges. Mainland Chinese economists believe that aligning the financial powers and responsibilities of central and local governments is a main consideration for deepening fiscal and tax system reforms and establishing a modern fiscal system. Since 2022, due to the relatively sluggish performance of the real estate market, income from land sales has been at a historical low. How to offset the financial shortfall caused by the decline in land concession revenue has become a difficult problem to avoid. Reports indicate that from January to April 2024, national government fund budget revenue was 1,348.4 billion yuan, roughly $186 billion, down 7.7% from the same period last year, including 1,053.6 billion yuan, about $145 billion, from state-owned land use right transfer income, down 10.4%. With local fiscal revenue growth weak and rigid expenditures not decreasing, local fiscal revenues and expenditures show an imbalanced state. Mr. David J. Wong, an American economist, highlighted the shift in China's fiscal policy from relying on printing money and accumulating debt to a focus on tax-based revenue. However, he criticized the timing of this shift during an economic downturn, warning that retrospective tax investigations could weaken the economy and reduce tax revenues over time. Wong also noted that after 2014, the CCP's reforms reduced local government's tax authority, leading to ongoing conflicts with the central government over fiscal control. These reforms typically strengthened central power at the expense of local autonomy. Mr. Qin Peng, a Chinese political and economic analyst in the U.S., cautioned against the CCP's rhetoric surrounding these reforms, emphasizing that the real issue is China's economic decline and lack of consumer and business confidence. He suggested that the government should boost its spending to encourage consumer spending rather than focusing on intensive tax investigations. Recently, it has been reported that many local governments in China have begun retroactively investigating private enterprises' taxes for up to 30 years, with many businesses being levied hefty fines, leading some to shut down. Backlash against policies pushing rural Chinese to swap homestead rights for urban housing. Recently, several regions in China have implemented policies encouraging rural residents to give up their homestead rights for incentives to purchase urban housing. These policies have faced significant backlash from netizens, sparking heated debates and a flood of negative comments online. For example, in Fengyang County, Anhui Province, the local government's WeChat account announced that farmers who voluntarily relinquish their homestead land to buy urban housing will receive a one-time incentive of 50,000 yuan, about $6,900. This incentive, however, cannot be combined with other financial aids like housing vouchers or subsidies. Similarly, Nantong City has introduced a policy effective from April 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025, offering a 1.5% subsidy on the total purchase price of new commercial housing in specified urban areas. Additionally, those who give up their rural homestead rights for urban housing will receive a subsidy, the amount of which will be determined locally. In Aizhou, Hubei Province, another policy offers subsidies based on the area of relinquished homestead land for those who demolish their rural properties and buy new urban housing. These policies have drawn intense criticism, with over 100,000 combined comments on platforms like NetEase and Tushio. Many rural residents are reluctant to part with their homestead land, which they see as a vital safety net and a connection to their roots. Comments reflect deep concerns about losing a secure place to return to in old age and the potential financial burden of urban living without adequate support. Critics argue that these incentives are inadequate compared to the value of secure and spacious rural homes. Some see these government efforts as a desperate attempt to rejuvenate the flagging real estate market by targeting rural lands as a resource at the expense of the rural population's stability and security. Moreover, bloggers and commentators have accused the government of exploiting rural citizens, likening the situation to digging up the roots after harvesting the leeks, suggesting that the authorities are now targeting the very foundation of rural life after other measures have failed. This strategy is likely to be ineffective, as rural residents are skeptical of their prospects in the city, where securing employment sufficient to support a family can be challenging. Wealthier rural residents who can afford urban housing without incentives are unlikely to sell their land, while poorer residents might find subsidies insufficient to cover the costs of urban housing and associated lifestyle changes. Sudden heavy snow in Ganzi, Sichuan traps motorists on highway, shivering. As the scorching summer days commence, some regions in China have begun to experience snowfall. Several videos circulating online show heavy snow in Ganzi, Sichuan, with many vehicles stranded on the roads, and some individuals, dressed lightly, shivering from the cold. One of the videos is titled Snow at 3 a.m. on June 24, 2024, in Jiangxi Mountain, Ganzi, Sichuan Province. The video displays a thick layer of snow accumulated on the highway, making the roads wet and slippery due to partial melting of the snow, which resulted in several vehicles being unable to move. A person, wearing sneakers and with bare calves, stands on the snowy ground, seemingly shivering from the cold. Additional videos on Weibo and TikTok platforms suggest that heavy snow had already fallen during the daytime on the 24th, covering the mountains in white, with snowflakes swirling in the sky, and a large number of vehicles trapped on the highway. The bloggers posting these videos urged netizens to stay safe. Previously, on June 21st, netizens also shared videos of snowfall. The videographer claimed to be from Baoshan, Yunnan. However, some netizens mentioned that the video was actually shot in a location in Gansu province by the same person from Baoshan. These two instances of summer snow have not been reported by mainstream media in mainland China, only appearing sporadically in videos on social media. In traditional Chinese culture, snow in June is seen as a symbol of grievous injustice, and in recent years, it has also become a target of censorship by the Chinese Communist Party. A few years ago, many Chinese media, including party-affiliated outlets, followed the principle of handling sorrowful events with joy and reported on summer snowscapes. However, now, summer snow has become a taboo subject for reporting. Southern China disasters: landslide kills people, subway lines halted, Lingyin temple flooded. Heavy rains and floods have recently devastated southern China, triggering disasters like landslides. On June 23, a sudden landslide struck Sichuan County, Hunan Province, claiming 8 lives. Measurements indicate the landslide spanned 122 meters in length, 88 meters in width, and was 5 meters thick, totaling approximately 50,000 cubic meters in volume. Locals noted that the buildings impacted were government relocation housing for those previously living in hazardous mountain areas, and there were no prior landslide warnings. Meanwhile, in Changsha, the capital of Hunan, the rainfall reached extraordinary levels, equivalent to 54 West Lakes worth of water pouring down in just 1 hour, resulting in the flooding of subway stations and the cessation of services on several lines. A local from Hunan commented online criticizing the city's vulnerability, stating, "Just a bit of rain and everything stops, isn't that too fragile? This isn't even a disaster, what would happen in a wartime scenario?" The Hunan Meteorological Department forecasts continued heavy to torrential rain from June 23 to 25 in central and northern Hunan, with some areas experiencing extremely heavy rainfall. Residents have been advised to prepare for potential flash floods, geological disasters, river overflows, and urban waterlogging. Additionally, the Lingyin Temple in Hangzhou, recognized as one of China's oldest Buddhist temples and one of the top 10 ancient temples, also suffered severe flooding. Floods destroy hundreds of tons of liquor in Meizhou, over 70 pigs buried in Fujian. In Meizhou, Guangdong, the floodwaters completely destroyed a local distillery, wiping out its hundreds of tons of alcohol along with the facilities. The owner of the distillery managed to survive by seeking refuge on the 3rd floor. In a separate incident, a village in Lingyin City, Fujian Province, was hit by a mudslide, which killed over 70 pigs belonging to a prominent pig farmer. The official report from the Chinese Communist Party revealed that the disaster led to the collapse of 2,247 houses, severe damage to 3,203 homes, 4,697 road collapses, damage to 111 bridges, and the flooding of thousands of hectares of crops, resulting in a direct economic loss of nearly 6 billion yuan, about $826.4 million. By 1500 hours on June 21, at least 38 people had died, and 2 were missing. Given the CCP's tendency to underreport disaster details, the actual damage may be more extensive than the official figures suggest. Local netizens in Guangdong have indicated on Weibo that this disaster was caused by the release of water from upstream, with 2 reservoirs opening their gates. Reservoir releases floodwater, 20,000 chickens of Hubei farmers drowned. Due to the opening of several reservoirs for flood discharge, on June 22, a breeder in Xianing City, Hubei Province, experienced the loss of over 20,000 chickens to flooding, resulting in severe losses of approximately 200,000 yuan, about $28,000, including the cost of the feed. Online videos depict many chickens submerged in floodwaters, presenting a distressingly tragic scene. Netizens expressed their sorrow online, commenting, "Too tragic and too horrible to watch." Some mentioned that in Jiangxi as well, reservoirs released water without notice, leading to tremendous losses. One netizen shared, "Back in 2016 in my hometown, the reservoirs were opened without any notification. Within half an hour, our home was flooded. There was no one to help, it was just a game of passing the buck." On June 23, a netizen posted on Platform X, stating that every time there is a flood, the Chinese Communist Party labels it a natural disaster. However, the reality is that China has the world's most numerous reservoirs, initially constructed under the guise of flood control and disaster relief, but primarily serving electricity generation, controlled by the party's interest groups. During the flood season, they refrain from releasing water, fearing if they do and it doesn't rain, they won't be able to generate electricity, affecting the party members' finances. As soon as it rains heavily, they begin discharging water onto the populace, secretly and without warning. All the reservoirs, large and small, have collectively become a nightmare for the people. The article highlights that every flood season, with every release of water from the reservoirs, it is underscored by the suffering and losses of the people. Yet, those in power trade these hardships for their own benefits. Whether it's the poor quality of flood control projects or the abrupt, unannounced releases, it demonstrates a clear disregard for the lives and property of the people. While real natural disasters are inevitable, these man-made disasters are a direct result of power abuse and corruption. The piece concludes by questioning how many more individuals must suffer under such governance and systems? In such an environment, whom can the people truly trust? Perhaps, the only remaining option might be the day they take up arms themselves. Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. If you find the information helpful, please share this video with a friend to watch together. This will be a great source of motivation for our team to produce more and more quality and reliable videos. And also don't forget to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths. Thank you for tuning in.